Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Head, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion, your host, and of course this is the Baseball Head 2, and I need you to subscribe and like this video. So we're going to talk about the buyers and sellers again in Major League Baseball, and we have a Sports Illustrated article that you might be interested in. Right now we're at the sort of the 70 to 75 game mark of the season. Now, as you know, we are at the kind of almost a halfway point of the schedule, and teams are in the process now of figuring out where they're going to take their teams. Now, there are teams on the bubble, and I'll talk about those three teams in this video, one of which is my New York Mets. They are on the bad side of this, but this is from Sports Illustrated, SI.com. Headline: MLB deadline, bubble teams that could buy or sell. Okay, first up, the Guardians. On one hand, Cleveland could easily win the AL Central, just as it did last year. While the team has not been in first place since early April, it currently sits just one game back of Minnesota, which is not exactly an unstoppable juggernaut. The American League Central is below 500. They're terrible. Every team is bad. On the other hand, this division is so weak that winning it doesn't necessarily mean very much. It seems hard to believe that a team with an offense like the Guardians could make any kind of serious run, even if they do handily win the division, and so they may look to sell. The interest in a player like Shane Bieber, who will become a free agent ahead of 2025, could make it hard to pass up a trade. He'd easily yield an impressive return and market thin on high-quality starters. Now, from what I understand, he's having some issues with his arm, not his arm, but his velocity. And if you're dealing with the Guardians, be very careful. They're a little sneaky. They move players after their value is gone. They're the first to figure out when the value of a player is gone. Same thing with the Rays. Don't deal with the Rays. The Rays don't hold on to anybody that's any good. A big sell-off seems unlikely in any event for the Guardians, but dealing Bieber or someone from this pitching staff feels entirely possible, even if they're in first place. Now, here's the thing about the Guardians. Their pitching is pretty good, so they could probably take a hit of losing him and holding on to a very strong staff. They have a lot of pitching in their minor leagues, by the way. So that's kind of, just keep that in mind. Seattle Mariners. This season has held plenty in the way of frustrating, underperforming teams, but they may not be one that has frustrated in quite the same way as the Mariners. Well, the team at the end of this video is much more frustrating than them. After ending their lengthy playoff drought last year, seemingly poised to make another run in October, they've instead found themselves in no man's land right around 500. They haven't been bad enough to be truly bad. All of that talent from last year is still here, although they do not have Robbie Ray. Robbie Ray is out for the season with Tommy John surgery. So they were hit very hard. That's a very hard injury to come back from. But they haven't been good either, and the result is a squad whose direction looks unclear. Only a few games out of the wild card race, and with the addition of an extra bat or two, it's not hard to see room for a run here. And with a 94 team OPS plus, Seattle really does need that extra offense, but it feels hard to imagine this front office going big at the deadline the way it did last year with Luis Castillo, which could mean they end up going the other way entirely if the M's don't make it up much ground in the next few weeks. If Seattle sells, Teoscar Hernandez is one name to watch. The outfielder's in his walk year and could fetch a nice return from contenders looking to bolster in line. And here's the thing about the Mariners that makes it very difficult for them to be buyers is that they have three teams ahead of them in their division. The Rangers have played great. They've been one of the best offense and really in the first 75 games in the history of baseball. That's a great manager running that team. That is not a schmo like they've had the last few years. They've had a lot of schmoes running that team. He's not a schmo by any sense of the imagination. And, of course, Houston is there. Houston's going to be there. I would be shocked if they don't make postseason again. They have a great manager, too, in Dusty Baker. The Angels, they have a young manager in Phil Nevin, but they have been in contention. So the Mariners have a lot they got to kick it in gear. If they don't kick it in gear, they're going to have a tough time getting in there. At this rate, right now, from what I could tell, the Mariners should not be buyers. I don't know if they should be sellers, but I don't think they should be buyers at this rate. They're probably better off just holding on to everybody. But with Jerry DiPoto, who's the general manager there, he's got a trigger finger. He'll pull the trigger on any trade, anytime, any place, anywhere. You know, even at the old flea markets, that guy was willing to trade anything. And finally, the New York Mets. It is hard to believe the Mets would sell. It is hard to believe. It's insane. This team was assembled to be a World Series contender, after all, and a good portion of their lackluster start has been due to injuries that may not plague them as much in the second half. The sell-off at the deadline to admit defeat on a roster to which they committed this much would certainly be a surprise. Oh, you think so? Let me tell you something. If you've watched this team, they look like they don't care. And their record, being that they are 6 games under 500, they are on pace to win 80, to lose, am I saying, are on pace to lose 88 games. That's pretty close to 90, isn't it? And yeah, look at their record. The Mets are 6 games below 500 and have been hovering at roughly 7 games out of the last wild card berth. They had 14 games behind the Braves now in the division. A comeback is now the question, especially if they choose to add at the deadline, and particularly if they can bolster their rotation with some depth pieces. You don't have to lead the Mets division for proof of just how drastically teams can turn around a bleak first half. Just look at the 22 Phillies with the 21 Braves. But it would be an uphill climb, and that might be enough to get them looking the other way. Mets almost certainly wouldn't deal from their core, even if their record gets much worse in the next few weeks. But it doesn't take much to see them pivoting and figuring out what they might be able to get from walk-year players like David Robertson and Tommy Pham. Now, these guys have played rather well. The Mets are in tough shape. I mean, it's going to be extremely difficult for them to figure out what to do. The basic problem is that they spent so much money. Steve Cohen spent so much money on this team. And he has said he doesn't want to sell. He doesn't want to trade these players. And because you don't want to trade these players, he is in a bad spot, okay? He put all of his money into this. And, I mean, there comes a point where you have to sort of realize, does this team have what it takes? Now, I've sort of talked about this Mets club as not having the insides. To me, that's the problem, is the insides. The sort of intestinal fortitude that you need. And that, to me, is the problem on this club more than anything else. I feel that they have a lot of talent. We saw that how having a strong manager last year made a big difference, but they've taken a slide. And there shouldn't be any reason why they've taken this slide this year. So I would think that this is basically the same group as from 2 years ago. For the most part, obviously they brought in Verlander, Scherzer. They miss Edwin Diaz greatly. We can't underscore that. They really miss him a lot. But this is a team that needs a lot of help. And I don't know if this group has it within itself. Well, you let me know what you think about this video. Of course, please subscribe to the Baseball Head too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.